So in the previous lessons, we focused on triangle patterns and wedges, and we also looked at head and shoulder patterns. In this lesson, we're focusing on double bottoms and double tops. They're some of the most common patterns that actually happen in the market. It's very, very simple pattern. It's not complex at all, but there's a few little things that you need to understand about a double top and a double bottom pattern because it could actually be a potential trap. It doesn't always give you full development, full trend change and confirmation and so on. So I'm going to spend some time in this lesson actually breaking it down. Again, I'll show you a bunch of examples, I'll draw it out for you, and I'll explain it as well. So with that said, let's have a look. Within double tops and double bottoms, they're mainly reversal patterns. However, they can also be continuation patterns. So if you look at the chart here, this is just a quick example of what a double top reversal pattern looks like. And simply we form one high, we pull back, second high, that's roughly at the same level as before, hence a double top, right? And then we break down lower low, lower high, trend confirmed, and now we're in a bearish trend. So that's the idea with double tops. They're very simple, and I mean, a lot of times they can turn into a triple top or a quadruple top where there's 3 rejections off of that major support and resistance level, or 4 rejections off of that same support and resistance level. In this case, the most common is obviously 2 rejections off of a major support and resistance level. That's the key, right? The key is still that we have some kind of support and resistance area in that general region wherever that double top or that double bottom is happening. So that's just a quick example. If we look at the charts again, what I'll do here is I'll actually draw out the patterns just so you can understand a little bit better. And I'll start off with, let's do a double top reversal pattern right here. So let's assume that this is a major support and resistance level. And then all of a sudden we're trending upwards towards it. Higher high, pull back, higher low. And then let's say we get a massive run that hits this resistance level and pulls back, okay, to form another higher low. So we're still in this bullish trend, higher high, higher low, higher high, higher low. And then again, we hit this level one more time to form a double top, and we start to reverse to the downside, right? So at this point we have a double top reversal pattern, but it's not necessarily confirmed yet because all we have is double tops and we're still forming higher lows, right? And as long as you're still forming higher lows, as long as you're still in that bullish trend or bearish, if it was a double bottom, I'll show you that in a second, but as long as you're still in that bullish trend, this double top can be a trap, right? It doesn't necessarily mean that it will give you a trend reversal. It's not enough information, right? So if we go back here to the drawing, right? So this is kind of what it could look like. The best idea would be, or the best pattern, a double top pattern would be if it actually breaks down and breaks the previous low, right? So in this case, check it out. Higher high, higher low, higher high, higher low, double top, lower low, right? And this right now, we have a confirmed trend change because we have a double top. Price did not go higher to give us a higher high. Hence, the bullish momentum has died off, right? Because it stalled at this resistance. And guess what? Rejected this resistance and fell massively to the downside to give us a lower low. And at that point, another thing that we typically would see is like a lower high to maybe retest the previous lows and continue with the new bearish trend. So this is what a double top looks like. It's, again, like I said, a pretty simple pattern, but you have to understand that simply by having a double top or a double bottom, it doesn't necessarily mean that we have a trend change yet. Let me show you what I mean by that. So let me draw out another example here. Let's continue. Let's assume this is again a horizontal support and resistance level. And let's draw out a similar pattern where we're trending upwards, higher high, higher low, and then we explode to the upside to give us that rejection of that high, of that resistance level. And then we pull back, higher low still, double top. But we could continue to form higher lows, triple top, higher low, quadruple top. And what do we have now? We have an ascending triangle, right? So until we actually break down and form a lower low, right? Like in the previous example, This double top pattern can turn into an ascending triangle as an example. Hence why if you're entering from the highs, if you're looking to take a trade short from this resistance level based on a double top pattern, you have to be a little bit cautious when it comes to management, or a little bit more aggressive when it comes to your management technique, because you have to understand that the double top pattern doesn't necessarily confirm a trend change until it actually breaks down. So before we have that breakdown, you have to assume that we could continue going higher with the bullish momentum. That's really important, just like in this case, right? And in this case, we developed an ascending triangle, so obviously we can continue to break out to the upside or break out to the downside like we learned in the previous triangle lesson. So let's remove this, because the main idea with a double top is again that we form some kind of a trend change. And the best example of that is again a lower low. And at that point, this double top pattern is confirmed. Again, we might continue into developing a triple top, which again could look something like that, right? And then finally we form a lower low, and that's okay, because a double top, a triple top, a quadruple top, all that means is that a specific resistance or support level is being rejected multiple times, meaning that it's a strong supportive resistance level. It doesn't want to be broken, right? So if it's rejected twice, awesome, let's have a breakdown. If it's rejected 3 times, great, let's wait for a breakdown, right? Waiting for that breakdown, that confirmation is important with these double tops, triple tops patterns, because it's actually the breakdown that gives us the full confirmation. Anything prior to that is still a little bit risky, because again, we could continue forming an ascending triangle and break out to the upside, right? So the breakdown giving us the lower low, previous low, lower low is extremely important. Now let me draw the opposite, because obviously the double top pattern can also have a double bottom pattern. That's, I'm assuming it's just assumed at this point, but let's just draw out. So lower low, lower high, lower low, we hit support, lower high, we're still trending downwards, double bottom, higher high, and at this point the pattern is confirmed. And let's wait for a higher low, and at this point any trades, this is a great time to take any positions to the upside, right? On the break and retest of the previous high as an example. Either way, the main thing that we're looking for is whenever we get a double top is, again, we're looking for that confirmation, which is the breakout, the higher high. Or in this case, a double bottom, it's the breakout, the higher high. When it's the double top, it's the breakdown and the lower low, okay? So that's important to note. And again, these are what a great double top and a great double bottom pattern looks like. Now, from a continuation pattern, we could obviously develop double tops and double bottoms as continuation patterns as well. And they would look something like this. So assume we're in a bearish trend. So this is a bearish trend. And they're very similar with all the other continuation patterns, where we have a pullback, still lower high, but we develop a higher low. But we don't go any farther to develop a new higher high. We just pause at the previous highs to give us a double top, right? Let's assume this is maybe a major support and resistance level. And at this point, continuation to the downside, you can even get a little retest and continue with the bearish momentum. So this is again what a double top continuation pattern would look like. Now, a double bottom continuation pattern will obviously look very similar to that. So let's assume we have a bullish trend, and then we have a pullback, higher low still, right? So higher high, higher low, but all of a sudden we get a lower high. So maybe we're developing a bearish trend, but we don't go any farther, because maybe this is a support and resistance level, maybe it's a 50 EMA or some kind of horizontal or dynamic support and resistance level. So we form a double bottom. We reject this support level as an example, and then we break out to the upside. And now we're in a continuation pattern, continuing with the general bullish trend. So that's kind of it for explaining double tops and double bottom continuation patterns and reversal patterns. So just know that obviously whenever we have a double top, that can turn into a triple top, even a quadruple top with 4 rejections or so of that major support and resistance level. The key is until we actually get a full trend change with a breakdown such as a lower low or a higher high, as an example, at that point, we have a full trend confirmation. But until we get that, as I explained when I was drawing this out, as it can still be a little bit more risky, because a double top or a double bottom doesn't necessarily confirm that we're going to have we will develop a new trend, right? It's when we actually break down, that is when the confirmation happens. So anything prior to the breakdown, you can still execute because it's a double top, a major resistance, or a double bottom, a major support, but you just have to be a little bit more cautious because it could develop into an ascending triangle or a descending triangle, as I just shown you when I was drawing this out. So let me actually show you a few examples of what double tops and double bottom patterns actually look like on live charts. Right, so we come back to the initial example that I showed you, right? In this case, we're trending upwards, higher high, higher low, and then we formed that double top pattern at the previous resistance level. So one rejection, second rejection, third rejection. In this case, this is a double top right here because it's brand new. It's a brand new trend here, right? Over here, we hit this high, we fell to the downside, and we started trending upwards. High, higher low, double top, still a higher low, lower high, lower low, lower high, lower low, right? So it's when we actually get this second lower high or this initial lower high with the tweezer top reversal candlestick pattern. That was really the first major confirmation that this double top is actually turning into a trend reversal. And then when we fully broke down, that was full confirmation, lower high right here. That's a great time to enter any short positions. So that's one example. Let me show you another. Now this example is a little bit more complex because it's not the clearest double top pattern. You can see that overall it's being, this general area here at 195 is being rejected, right? But it's obviously not as clear, but it's the same idea, right? We have clear double bottoms and clear double tops, and sometimes they're a little bit messy, right? Price action is not always perfect. That's the thing that we need to understand. We can definitely find perfect price action, we can focus on that, but it's not always perfect. And this is an example of what a potential double top could look like when it's not fully perfect. Perfect would mean that, you know, this would just go up a little bit higher, but I mean, it's pretty damn close. So either way, high, higher low, higher high, and then we broke down to the downside, lower low, lower high on the retest, potential short entry. We even had a high test reversal, and then we fell beautifully to the downside. So again, another example of a double top pattern. Now let me actually show you a few clearer ones as well. And over here, we have a beautiful double top reversal pattern. We even have MACD divergence. That's the one thing that I didn't mention before when I was drawing it out. But a double top pattern or a double bottom pattern, whenever, or any type of price action pattern, whether it's an ascending triangle or descending triangle or a head and shoulder pattern, but a lot of times they will develop MACD divergence as well, simply because it's decelerating. Price action is decelerating, and MACD a lot of the times shows that deceleration before it even happens, hence why we have MACD divergence. So looking at this example, check it out, previous high, higher low, double top, and at this point we already have MACD divergence. MACD is giving us a lower high, right? But anyway, when it comes to the double top pattern, pretty straightforward here. Pretty clear high and a very clear breakdown and a very clear retest of what was once support, potentially becomes resistance, deceleration, and a beautiful candlestick formation. So at this point, this would be a decent opportunity to go short as an example, right? So very clear double top pattern with a full trend confirmation, lower low, lower high, and a potential short. And the last example that I'll show you is right here. So check it out. We're in a bearish trend, trending downwards, making lower lows, lower highs, lower lows, lower highs, lower low, right? Lower high, double bottom. Realistically, you can even consider this a triple bottom. One rejection, second rejection, third rejection, right? Or in the larger spec of terms, one rejection, second rejection, and double bottom. Either way, triple bottom, double bottom is the same idea. It means that a support level is being rejected. In this case, we also have MACD divergence that developed, right? So that's a good sign of price action actually slowing down. And then we broke out. So check it out. We had this trend line with 1, 2, 3, 4 really good rejections, double bottom, breakout to the upside, higher high, higher low, retest of the 1 hour 50 EMA, trend line, We can even put in Fibonacci retracement in here as well, and we got 0.382. All of that was rejected with, check it out, a tweezer bottom reversal pattern, and then we exploded massively to the upside. So this is literally what a perfect double bottom pattern would look like, with a clear breakout and a clear retest and a trade to the upside. When we actually dig into the strategy lessons, this will be considered an IBO and an initial breakout strategy. So we'll go much deeper into that when we actually go into the strategy lessons. But just so you're familiar with what the patterns look like, this is what they look like. And that's why it's so important for you to actually understand these different price action patterns, because when we get to the strategies, we're going to be focusing on them quite a lot. So that is, yeah, that's a beautiful double bottom pattern with a clear breakout to the upside and a retest. So that's it when it comes to double bottoms and double tops. Pretty straightforward. They're not complex patterns as some of the other ones. But again, you got to understand a couple things. And the main thing is that whenever we get a double top or a double bottom, just make sure we have full confirmation. If we do not, and you still want to take a trade based on a double top alone and not wait for that lower low, as an example, that full breakdown, or the double bottom alone and not wait for that higher high, as we have just seen in this example. If you want to play from the lows, just know that it can develop into a descending triangle or an ascending triangle and break out later, or even break to the downside. The full confirmation on a double top or a double bottom comes when we have the breakout, right? Whenever we get the higher high or the lower low. So that is what I focus on majority of the times, because again, I want full confirmation. And when we go into multi-time frame analysis lessons, which they're coming soon, you're going to understand why that confirmation is so important. So that's it for double tops and double bottoms. In the next lesson, I'll show you what flags are, and then we'll be done with price action patterns. So see you in the next lesson.